when League released its latest game mode, which also turned out to be its only game mode, called Arena for the first time, it came out to a pretty good success. Not only did the vast majority of all the players enjoy it, but its retention stayed high due to the replayability, and some people consider this a great game mode for newer players too, since it was just all about silly fun. But on the other side, of course, we also had those who were sad that this wasn't Nexus Blitz, and they were grumpy because it wasn't coming back. So, it came back. And then immediately the focus went back to Arena, because only a few weeks after the first Arena event ended, Riot announced that it did so well that they will be bringing it back this winter. This isn't something that was originally planned, but because people loved Arena so much, the team shifted into an overdrive and they started working on it again. And now, few months later, Riot gave us an update on what got updated, and how the game mode is now going to be even better. So strap up, because dare I say it, the casual players got a big W. As always, the big news arrived in the form of a massive post. And right at the top, when they dived into Arena, they gave us the first new information. The maps now have their own name. Just like you have Summoner's Rift, or we used to have Twisted Tree Line, the maps for the Arena game mode is going to be the Rings of Wrath. Pretty cool name. But then they start with a bit of an introduction for what is going to be happening. Here they announce that version 2 of Arena will hit PBE in early November. Specifically, it will be November the 8th, which is now. Here the focus will be on bug hunting, so just expect that some graphical updates will be incomplete. And after that, the game mode will go live yet again in early December. And next, before diving into the details on the gameplay, they gave us a few words on the future of Arena. The first version of Arena was the first game mode the game modes team worked on and then later shipped. And the feedback they got from it got them so pumped up they just jumped back into the action. And now they are committed to improving the Arena game mode over time. But instead of working on it for a year and keeping all the players waiting, because all the players wanted to play it now, they decided to release it again sooner with smaller changes. But in return, they are asking for more constructive feedback. They can't promise the team will address everything, but they are listening. And you'll see a proof of that in just a moment. And after this, we got some big and important news. Right now, they are still in the experimental phase. So Arena will be only up for a short time before they take it down again. And they mentioned that they want to explore a little bit more of their options before they make the call to make it permanent. That's right, they are actively thinking about making this game mode permanent. You have no idea how happy that makes me. After which they jump straight into all the feedback they have heard. Mainly, all the feedback fits 3 big points. First of all, players wanted to play more with their friends. Second is that some classes felt overpowered or underpowered compared to the rest of the roster. And third is that the stage gameplay, including cameos, were pretty hit or miss. As well as the ranked system not covering the entire need of all the players. After which the team tells us how they are addressing all of these. Starting with playing with friends. Here they are being pretty straightforward, and I absolutely love this quote. Here comes the design innovation of the century. It turns out the best way to address people wanting to play with more people is to let them play with more people. Therefore, we have increased the number of players who can queue together. That's right, now you will be able to queue with groups of 2, 3, and 4 players. And when you do, you get to choose who is going to be on whose team. Right now, 5 and 6 are not allowed because I assume you would be able to win trade. And of course, a team of 7 just screams awful things. But also, you can queue as a full pre-mate of 8 people. But be aware that you are still entering the normal queue, so you will win or lose your points. Also, apparently the team learned that keeping the queue united is still the best play for Arena. Separating it into normal queue and ranked queue, just like what League does, might damage the entire game mode. Especially since its player base is still smaller. And I honestly believe that is the right call. Right now, it works, but if in the future, when the player base gets massive, if they wanna split it, that's fine. But until then, it's all good. Next, they addressed the champion diversity. One major complaint was that the diversity was simply not big enough. In my experience, I kinda agree. It really felt like some champions just didn't work. Though the vast majority of all champions still did have some use. You just had to play them in a very specific comp for them to work. And of course, players were too lazy to experiment with that. And what's awesome is that we got some stats on this. Apparently, compared to Summoner's Rift, there were fewer champions appearing in every lobby, which is still not that bad compared to the massive juggernaut which Summoner's Rift is. But on the other side, there were some champions who were never picked. And so the focus is now going to be on giving more champions a chance. The first big change that might help this are going to be the Augments. The team recognized that the players absolutely loved the wacky fun these gave them. However, the unfortunate outcome is that a lot of the classes just built the same things. People found out what's the perfect augment for their champion and they just always re-rolled for that one. I played Mundo and Singed. I would know. So, the team decided to add in 60 new augments, including stuff like special augments which specifically enhance the ability haste of your Q, W or E, which should make the diversity a little bit better. And to further help with the diversity of builds, all augments now work on a pool system, meaning that now there will only be 2 of each augments in any given game. Which means that the players will compete for them in a similar way to how units work in TFT. Which basically means that the arena team eliminated all the cases where everyone was just building the same augments. And honestly, this is just a really good change. You might think it sucks because now you will be less likely to get all of those awesome wacky augments, but the main point lies elsewhere. This change should encourage experimentation. And it should reward players who are flexible with their picks. At the same time, I have to point out one thing. This also might mean that the best champions for the arena game mode are gonna be the most flexible ones. Stuff like Jax, who can be played in any way you want. So that even if you get the worst augments, you can still use them better than someone like Brand. Also, this should naturally make people play other classes as well. Because if everyone, for example, decides to play the tank class, all the tanking augments will just immediately disappear because everyone will try to pick them. So being a bit more niche will now have its own reward. Now, connected to picking augments, the team also talked about clarity. Apparently they added in a new frame for all the augments which should tell you what that augment is actually doing, as well as what it will synergize with. The idea is that it should be obvious what every augment is doing at a first glance. Now, the team also mentioned that they still wanna greatly expand the entire augment pool. So don't you dare think they are stopping at extra 60. Which is why this clarity is gonna be important in the long run. The more augments there are, the more likely you are to be confused. But at the same time, also remember that some of the bad augments are getting removed. We still don't know which ones those are though. Another thing people might bring up is, what happens if your champion just gets counterpicked? Well, the team knows about this issue and they propose a solution. The game will start with banning as it did before, but after that all the picking will be done in 2 waves. It will start with 1 player on each team picking a champion first, then all those champions will be revealed, and then the other member on each team gets to pick. However, they can't pick any of the champions who are picked in the first round. Which, yes, it should mean that all the other people on all the other teams can also pick your champion. So I hope the picking timer is a little bit more forgiving. Because now you have to think about 4 people picking your champion before you decide to lock it in. But the team also mentioned that picking should be still faster than it is in Summoner's Rift. Personally, I liked the fact how you could just play your favorite champion regardless the circumstances. The only one who could have picked your champion was just your own team member. Now you might be forced into just playing random champions, which is good for the experimentation, but it might not be the most fun experience. Then again, maybe I just misunderstood it, and maybe it's just that one person on your team who can pick your champion. Well, we'll see. Now, on the topic of balancing, the team shared they can't just show us all the changes because it will be a big one. But yes, the massive list of all the changes will be shown in proper patch notes. The goal is to bring some classes up to par with mostly balancing their items. I'm gonna assume this is talking about enchanters and healers. And where items can't help, they will look into specific champions. But as a reminder, the second version of Arena will launch during the holidays, so they won't be able to be as active with the patches as they were during the first round. And lastly, they are throwing one more wrench into all the chaos, because Arena's second version is introducing the Hex Gates. These teleporters are aiming to give all the squishy champions a chance to get away from that one charging Mundo. And to prevent the Mundo from charging after you, the teleporter will have a global cooldown. So we'll see how that one goes. Which takes us into the stage gameplay. You see, one of the rougher parts of Arena was being stuck in a 2v1 scenario. In many ways, it was always very similar to how Arena works in World of Warcraft. In fact, if you go back to my original Arena review, this is exactly what I mentioned. The moment one champion dies, the match is pretty much decided. Their team is highly likely to lose unless there is some kind of a comeback. And to combat this, the Arena team is introducing the downed state. That's right, you know where this is heading. When a champion dies, a circle will spawn in the place where they died. And for a short duration, their ally can step in it and revive them. And it will be up only once per round, so no, there will not be an endless cycle. But yes, this is the good old classic revive mechanic from Battle Royales or many other multiplayer RPGs. The team doesn't expect a revive to happen every round, but they should offer a comeback when dealing with all the burst comps. And after this, they announced the only chance some people may not like. From now on, the Ring of Fire at the very end will have a randomized placement. On one side, this is awesome because this is countering how Heimerdinger and Zyra could always control the center. But on the other side, people are afraid that the outcome of many matches will go down to luck. In some cases, if it just starts on your side, you win. However, what is important to mention is that while the placement is randomized, it is randomized between a few set places. So people can still play around the randomness, which means it is not as bad as people thought it would be. And I think it is a pretty good middle ground. Next, they quickly talk about the cameos. Cameos are of course all the champions who appear in the middle of the arena and just screw with all the players. The team knows that these absolutely added a variety into all the fights. And overall, they were pretty well received, though some of them got old very quickly. Now, for this version of Arena, in order to release all of this sooner, they could only modify the ones who were already in the game. They couldn't really just replace the entire system. So now, the cameos will also include some Winterblessed skins. And they specifically mention Sett, Pyke, Gwen, Sylas and Thresh. I don't know if this is teasing that this year these are gonna get a winter skin. Now, as an example for what these do, Sylas will just give everyone a random ultimate at the beginning of the fight. It should replace your offensive summoner spell, and in many ways it should function just like Ultimate Spellbook. And also there is Thresh, who will just walk around and throw people lanterns. To end this part, the team mentioned that they don't believe that cameos are the exact right thing for the arena game mode, but they haven't really figured out what can replace it. So they are absolutely down to listen to feedback. In my opinion, keep the cameos, but maybe instead of just champions with skins, just make them unique encounters. What if Baron just spawns somewhere and starts spewing goo on everyone? Or what if there is a Freljordian map, and just like what happened with Aram with the structures that were falling down and crossing the bridge, what if there was a pillar in the middle of the map and you could hit it, and depending on from which side you hit it, it will fall on the other side, basically creating a terrain. You can give the maps different diversity by giving them these unique kinds of gameplay without really needing a cameo. I don't know, maybe that's a thought. But that's really it for all the news around the gameplay side. So next the team is going to talk about what's happening around the game mode. Here we have 3 main points, with the first one being the rating system. When it launches the second time, everyone will have their rank reset, but their hidden MMR will not reset. So if you got Gladiator last season, it should be faster to get there again. Although all the thresholds should be a little bit higher, because apparently people got Gladiator a little bit too quickly. Also, they will be re-releasing the icons from the first version, meaning that if you were Iron last time, if you get Gladiator now, you will essentially just upgrade your icon. I'll be honest, I am not a massive fan of this. I like it when people achieve something and then they get a little badge that they did something that other people didn't. Now, if you got Gladiator in the first version, there is nothing that would show people that you did it. Because if people do it in the second version, it will just overwrite everything from the first one. So I would like it if we got a different icon from the first one. I mean, it's winter, just use the same icon we got before, but give it a wintry border or something. Anyway, speaking of recognition, Arena is getting another massive thing. They are getting their own challenges, though these ones will be hidden in the Legacy category. And what's awesome is that these come with their own title. We don't know what the title is gonna be yet. My bets are on Arena Master, or maybe just Gladiator. But it's still amazing to see this kind of a support on the meta level. Also keep in mind that you will only be able to complete these challenges if you fully finish a match. You can't just keep abandoning the match in the middle of the game, which is really nice to see. And finally, to end it all, the team brings up one conundrum. When Arena first debuted, it had its own ranked system. It was intentionally a light version of a ranked system because its audience was still fresh. But now, as the game is growing, they found themselves at a crossroad. This was primarily supposed to be a for fun game mode, but they still want to give it some ranked system, because it gives people a purpose in playing more. Which also means that putting in a grinding ladder would go against the base idea of the game mode. So right now, they are still aiming for 1Q system, but they are still definitely interested in hearing what people think. I honestly believe that what they have now is perfect. It is exactly the same rank system as Hyperroll and it just works. People who like the grind will climb the lighter version of the ranked system. And those who wanna push for number 1 rank can still do it with the infinite number count, while the rest of the players can just enjoy their silly fun. I would definitely stay with the 1Q system, it really just works. In this case, I think the best approach would be the hands-off approach. There is no need to specifically tailor a system when players already have the option to do whatever they want. So keep going with what you have now. I think it's the best of both worlds. But that's where the news ends. Again, the team is listening to absolutely everything that people have to say, because they are building this game mode with the community. To which I would like to say, I still believe some version of the Arena game mode is gonna be League's future, especially when it comes to the casual audience. This is a perfect balance between the wacky fun and what League used to be at the beginning before climbing ladders dominated its identity. I think this game mode is so close to bringing back all the people who quit League because they didn't like the ranked grind. So now I wonder, is the wacky fun gonna be enough to revive that fresh feeling for League of Legends? So far, it does seem to be the case, but Riot still needs one more thing. When it comes to the Rings of Wrath, I am well aware that we will never see Star Guardian Invasion again, but they may still appear as a map in this. Look, I'm still hoping for an Odyssey map.